And joining me now is Dakota Wood, Senior Research Fellow for Defense Programs for the Heritage Foundation. Dakota, thank you very much for joining us today.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
Well, the U.S. is again, after I think some people were looking and thinking maybe the U.S. were kind of siding towards a ceasefire, they're coming back and defending Israel's occupation in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. How is this all unfolding to you?
Well, the U.S. government is a bit conflicted. Everybody knows we're at the front end of a very tumultuous election season. So the government in power under President Biden is very concerned about its voting base. And it's trying to adopt positions where the U.S. strongly supports Israel, but always in mind, or keeping in mind, the pro-Palestinian groups of various types across campuses and in the left side of American politics here in the United States. So it can't be completely in Israel's camp and not account for the destruction and the loss of life in Gaza or in the West Bank, but it can't champion Hamas and the Palestinian authorities that have continually attacked Israel for, how many years? I mean, we're measuring this in decades. So the U.S. is trying to kind of have it both ways at the moment, where it vetoes a resolution to go to immediate ceasefire, and yet word is the U.S. will propose its own resolution, a more gradual approach to a ceasefire. So it's a little confusing, I think, on the international scene, but it's politics here in the United States.
Well, of course, the big concern for the Democrats is Michigan. One of the states is Michigan,
Right.
where they're talking about Middle Eastern immigrants could be the factor there, Detroit in that area there. Can this backfire, though, for them when they're trying to walk down the middle?
Oh, it absolutely is. When you try to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody. So you could irritate people across the spectrum. What does the United States stand for, right? And so if you really estrange or anger that component in the Democratic Party that wants to champion the Palestinian cause, you lose those votes. If you don't appeal to the more conservative elements of the Democratic Party or moderates in America writ large, that have long supported Israel, you risk losing those votes as well. So this ambiguity could certainly backfire. And I think what people don't account for is the Israeli perspective. Nobody in that region wants the state of Israel to exist. They've been subject to terrorist attacks almost since their founding, 5 major wars that I can recall off the top of my head to try to eliminate the state. The Palestinians and Hamas in particular has not pulled back from their objective of destroying Israel as a state. No Arab or Muslim country in the region has condemned what Hamas did. And so the Israelis feel compelled to look at their security interests, and those would trump just about any other interest, diplomatic or economic, that somebody might bring up.
So no matter what we hear as a ruling from the court or a decision from the court, it won't really matter, will it?
I don't think so. I mean, if you look at the last 10 years, the General Assembly in the UN has ruled or condemned Israel in some way, ruled against them 140 times. The rest of the world, less than 70. So, I mean, in the terms of the UN, if you're an Israeli, the UN has it out for Israel to begin with. Israel doesn't believe that the World Court has anything to say or no ability to enforce some kind of writ on it. They've kind of seen this game before. And so I think Netanyahu is just going to dismiss whatever comes out of the court because they're assuming that it's going to go against Israel anyway.
Is there any hope for a temporary ceasefire even right now with everything that is going on?
Yeah, I think, there's always hope, and I'm not just kind of soft pedaling that. You cannot ignore the human toll that has been taken amongst Gazans. It's just horrific. The provision of humanitarian support needs to increase. But even the UN relief organization says that it's so chaotic that they won't even try to get convoys in at the moment. The fact that Hamas continues to hold hostages inside the civilian population, to have their headquarters and training and to conduct attacks from inside the population is just going to invite more Israeli attacks, against the enemy element with casualties in the civilian population as well. So it's kind of a no-win situation. But this mounting pressure, the relentless coverage of the casualties will lead at some point to some kind of ceasefire, whether that's this week or next month, I don't know. Netanyahu is under tremendous pressure to get the hostages released, and he has given Hamas an ultimatum by the beginning of Ramadan, and we'll just have to see what both sides do as we get closer to that mid-March date.
Okay, Dakota, thank you very much for your insight as always.